Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report. It's been a little while since the last one. That's just because we've been covering a few extra new things on the channel. So some of the mainstays like Crisis Protocol and Batman and whatnot, they got pushed back a little bit, but they haven't gone anywhere. They're still here to stay. Just in terms of finding time for them, had to spread them out a little bit more just because of the extra games we've been covering. On that note as well, the table being used today is a repurposed Camp Crystal Lake, which was recently the scene of a horrific event, let's say. But anyway, today we have a 17 threat match between the Avengers and the Uncanny X-Men, and the X-Men are featuring the newest releases on the table. Bleeding is going to be a big theme here, I think, but we can go into more detail about that as we look at the teams and their tactics cards. So here is our Uncanny X-Men team being led by Cyclops. He's giving them the X-Men Blue affiliation bonus, and the affiliation list on the Atomic Mass Games website has been updated to include the two new people that we're here to see today. But there's also Wolverine, and then the other Wolverine, X-23, and then I think the smallest miniature, well, Rocket Raccoon is probably still the smallest miniature they've done, but the smallest human they've done is definitely Honey Badger. I think she's probably about the same size as normal Miss Marvel, but because she's kind of hunched over, she's definitely the smallest human just in terms of actual scale, and all three of them will be doing bleed on all of their attacks. So to see if that is worth taking advantage of, Blade is along for the fun, and he'll be healing and whatnot on the number of people who are bleeding around him. And the tactics card being brought by the Uncanny X-Men: Jonathan the Unstoppable, Weapon X Program, Exceptional Healing, First Class, which if it's forgotten to be mentioned at deployment, it will be getting used in the first battle round, and Wolverines as well. And it's the all new, all different Avengers taking to the field today. Sam Wilson with his affiliation bonuses, the leader, and coming along with him is Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Black Widow, I was going to say Iron Fist there, Luke Cage, and then just because there was 2 points to fill, Wong is coming along as well. So it's a Sam Spam list for the first time on the channel. 6 minis, which is rare in this game. We'll see how they do today. And if we pull back a little bit, we can see that their tactics cards are Avengers Assemble, Second Wind, Medpack, Heroes for Hire, and Fallback. So 2 classic Crisis cards being played. The secure is Riot Sparks over Extremist 3.0, so there's 4 Extremist consoles. You get 1 victory point for each one you're securing during the cleanup phase, and you can spend 1 power to interact with one within 2 to heal 1 damage. That's the threat value being played. Extraction: Fear Grip's world is worthy terrorized citizens. It never gets boring. It's the Celestial Hammers, 4 of them, also in the same map setup type. 1 victory point for each one held. It makes tactics cards more expensive to use, but also gives 1 extra attack die. So if we pan back here, they're on top of each other, but they're slightly overlapped just to show they're both there. There's 1 hammer. Over there is another hammer. Right at the back of the table is another one. And over there by the dead tree stump is the 4th. So we are all set up and good to go. The Avengers are to your right and will be taking first activation in Battle Round 1. The Uncanny X-Men are to your left. We can take a look at where they're deployed though. Luke Cage and Black Widow are here, and then over here we have Hawkeye, we have Captain America, then right up there at the tippy top of the table we have Wong and Ant-Man. Now if we come over here, X-23, Honey Badger and Blade are all down here in the corner. Then kind of in the centre is Cyclops and Wolverine competing with each other for Jean's heart or whatever. So with that, let's jump into Battle Round 1 and get this game started. So for the Avengers' first activation, Hawkeye activated. He just did 1 medium move to position himself there within 1 of the Extremist console. He paid his 1 power and picked up the hammer there as well, just so he can shoot down long range with a couple of extra dice thrown in. And as predicted, did totally forget to mention that during the first turn, the X-Men used first class, so they won't be paying any power to pick up the hammers. Just for a matter of note, it has indeed been used. Both sides want their long-range fire support holding a hammer, so the Uncanny X-Men activated Scott first. He just moved up medium to the far side of the closest Extremist console, and because of first class could pick up the hammer there for free. So he and Hawkeye are going to be squaring off to each other. From where he started, Luke Cage activated next, and he double medium moved, slotted himself between the Extremist console and that rock there, just in case there was any pushing opportunities. I don't think there is, but just in case. And has paid 1 power to pick up the hammer there. He also doesn't have anything to fear from the assorted Wolverines because he's immune to bleed. so they won't be getting anything out of him. So despite Luke Cage's immunity to bleed X-23 activated, and she was not deterred, and she moves medium and moved 1.5-ish movements to get within one of the Extremist console, just within one and slightly off to the side as well, just so if Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow wants to shoot at her, she'll need to move around a little bit to avoid getting cover, or to avoid X-23 getting cover. Way up at the top of the map there, Ant-Man activated next for the all new, all different Avengers. He double medium moved in order to get into position on that Extremist console there. He did not pay power to pick up the hammer, so the hammer is still sitting there, because if he wants to be changing size constantly, he can't be taking the hammer because he'll constantly drop it. So he's leaving it for someone else to deal with. The Wolverine activated next, the original one that is, and double medium moved up. The entirety of the Uncanny X-Men team actually is a medium move, so at least that's easy to remember if nothing else. So Wolverine just moved up twice, not enough to get within contesting range of the Extremist console or to pick up the hammer, but can certainly threaten Ant-Man next turn. Wong decided to follow Ant-Man to back him up a little bit, but only moved medium once, and for his other action meditated to gain 1 extra power. Honey Badger activated next for the Uncanny X-Men, and as previously stated, she is a medium move. She moved a little bit weird though. She moved forwards medium once and then kind of half moved up onto the rock there. She's a 2-threat character, and she has that 2-threat character rule that most of them have. Well, not most of them, some of them have, like Nebula, where she can't hold objectives, she can't contest objectives, although her tactics card, Jonathan the Unstoppable, can kind of get around that, but in general, she doesn't help towards holding objectives and can't carry any. So she's hanging back a little bit, so the X-23 is the more dangerous target because they have a little rule where they can interact with each other if one of them is within 3 and gets hit. Second last activation for the Avengers, Sam Wilson. He moved up medium, which put him millimeters within range 4 to chuck his shield at Wolverine. There was no defense roll required. He rolled 2 blanks and 2 shields, so the chances of there being any bloodshed in Battle Round 1 are narrowing very severely. And now it's over to either Blade or, oh actually I think it's just Blade. Simple enough movement for Blade. He just wanted to go contest that Extremist console to stop Luke Cage holding it on his own. X-23 is just within 1 as well, so it's currently being held by the X-Men, although if Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow does decide to double move, she'll be able to get in there and make it a draw. But let's see, because it is over to her to end off Battle Round 1. Rather than take the bait of attacking X-23 or Blade, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow did indeed just move in to do the counterplay on the Extremist console there to make it a draw. Didn't want to bait in Honey Badger to force her to move in if she wants to attack next turn. Speaking of next turn, it's going to start getting very bloody down there. Well, maybe not, because Luke Cage can't be Blade, but we'll see what happens. Let's go to scoring for the first battle round. So at the end of a violence-free, more or less, Battle Round 1, here's how the scores are sitting. The Uncanny X-Men only have one of the hammers on Scott Summers for 1 victory point, and they are holding their back objective there for 1 victory point as well, bringing them to 2. The Avengers are holding 2 hammers. There's one just sitting on the table, so that gives them 2 victory points, and then Hawkeye is holding this back Extremist console, and then right up there, Ant-Man is holding that Extremist console for another 2, taking them to 4. As stated already, the console down here is a draw. So as we go into Battle Round 2, the Uncanny X-Men take first activation. The Avengers are leading, 4 playing 2. I think that about covers everything. Other than just to mention, in general for this battle report, we're trying more static cam shots. Not all of them, like this one for instance, but most of them are a bit more static cam with hopefully a dynamic view of the action. Let me know if you prefer that to the usual style, so we know what to do going forward. And with that, let's jump into Battle Round 2. So Battle Round 2 got started with Honey Badger of all people activating. She moved medium right on top of the Extremist console right there, for a reason we'll go into in a second. Then she did her basic attack, which is pretty decent for a 2-threat character. It's only range 2, but it's a 5 dice physical with bleed on wilds. She did it on Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow. She got 4 attacks through, although Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow has pretty decent physical defense of 4, and she actually managed to fully block it. There was a wild though, so the bleed has gone through. Now the reason she got in close to both of these is because of her passive called Ankle Biter, which just makes her kind of like too annoying to ignore. If anyone within 1 is targeted by one of her teammates, they roll 1 less defense die because she's like bothering them while they're getting attacked. She's not super tough, but it can force her to be the target, and she now has enough power that she can kind of do her bodyguard equivalent role as well to make herself, which adds the exact same role Luke Cage has, too dangerous to ignore. Sam Wilson activated first for the Avengers, and he moved medium by accident in turn 1. He actually moves long, but he managed to do his attack that he wanted to do anyway, so it doesn't change anything. So this turn he did move long in order to get within 1 of the Extremist console up there in the corner. He paid 1 power and picked up the hammer as well, and then chucked his newly empowered shield throw at Wolverine, which makes him on par with Captain America Steve Rogers, puts it up to 5 dice, chucked it at Wolverine. All said and done, 1 damage went through, which isn't great, especially considering Wolverine will heal on his turn, but he did something. X-23 was next for the X-Men, and she had a busy turn. She started by spending the 2 power she had on Claw Rush, which is a medium move followed by a 6 dice physical. Doesn't have bleed on it, just has pierce. She used it on Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow. 2 damage got through that time, leaving Black Widow on 3 left. She then, for her other action, did her basic Adamantium Slash, which is identical to Wolverine's with pierce and bleed on it. That one did more than enough. It did 4, so Black Widow was dazed. Now, because she dazed someone and it generated a little bit of power on the basic attack, 3 more, she spent 2 of that to do Frenzy, which is when she dazes or KOs someone, she gets to move small, although she opted not to move, and then do an Adamantium Slash for free. She did that on Luke Cage, did 3 damage, which he reduced down to 2. So that is the power of X-23 when she gets started. Upon Black Widow being knocked out, sorry, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow, but either way, the all new, all different leadership for Sam kicks in, and it would be before Luke Cage got attacked, so he can't heal the damage he took. So instead, Wong is opting to take advantage of that and has advanced small, so he's right behind Ant-Man and Sam. So we're staying over there because it was Ant-Man who activated next, and he did end up going back to regular size, but he started his turn by spending 1 to change size, so you place the small version of him within 1. He can then take advantage of a free move because he hitches a ride on a flying ant, which put him within 1 of Wolverine, and then he did, for his other actual action, his... oh, actually, this changing size isn't an action, so he could still do something else from where he is. But we'll cover what he did actually do first. He did ant-sized uppercut from where he was, 6 dice physical, whiffed entirely, only 1 success in the row, it was terrible. Wolverine blocked it, but then he's forced to change back to normal size and be placed within 1, so that's why you see him as regular size back there. He is still within 1 of the Extremist console there as well, so he is still holding it. But I believe he still has another action. Yeah, so for his other action, Ant-Man did Pim Particle Punch. It's only a range 2 4 dice physical, and forgot to leave the damage there, pardon me, but he did manage to do with those 4 dice 1 damage to Wolverine. He could roll 6 against him and do nothing, but he rolled 4 and did 1. That's just the way this game rolls sometimes. So that also forces him, when he does Pim Particle Punch, to shrink down. Well, actually no, I think it's optional, but either way he opted to do it because he's not holding an objective, and that gives him rerolls on his defense and brought him a little bit closer to that console as well. So Wolverine activated for the Uncanny X-Men and spent 3 on the best at what I do, a medium move followed by an Adamantium Slash. He did it on Wong for 3 damage, didn't get any wilds though, so no bleed. But that doesn't matter because then he did another Adamantium Slash. That also did 3, which is a bit hard to see from here. Also didn't bleed, but it doesn't matter because Wong only has 4 HP, so he is dazed. Wolverine ended his turn there contesting that console. He healed the 2 damage on him with his healing factor. All new, all different kicked in again as a result of Wong being dazed. Luke Cage took advantage of this. He healed 1 damage and he has moved away small because it's a lost cause trying to grab that console, so he's just trying to put some distance between himself because he is holding a hammer. So because one flank is kind of getting lost to the Avengers, Luke Cage decided to take further advantage of being able to move by activating next for the Avengers. He double medium moved and now he's on that back Extremist console to the right of your screen in front of Hawkeye, and leaving Black Widow, well, she's dazed, so it's not like anything else can happen to her this turn, but kind of just leaving her in that console down on the left there to its own devices. Well, Blade's not letting them get away with that, so he activated and double medium moved after Luke Cage, charging on in there, hoping that he can withstand the barrage from Hawkeye, which I believe has to be the next thing to happen thanks to their dazes. So Hawkeye activated and he fired his full quiver at Blade twice. The first one was looking bad, so Blade spent 2 on superhuman reflexes it's called, or something like that. It lets him reroll any number of failed defense dice, including skulls, and he had 0 successes, so he needed to fully blocked it as a result of that, but a special condition still got through, so he got shocked. And remember, Hawkeye's rolling 1 extra die because he's holding a hammer as well. Hawkeye fired again, and the second shot was even better than the first. Not enough power, had none at the time, to do the reroll again, so Blade took 4 of his 6 health from that second shot and got poisoned for his trouble, so pretty nasty. And it's over to Cyclops to end the turn, and I think he might just be staying still. Yeah, no one's getting into shooty range. His range 4, and he doesn't have enough power yet to do his beam 5, not that that would reach anyone either. So Cyclops is just activating and unactivating so he can hold that Extremis console. So then about round 2, the Uncanny X-Men are winning the fight but kind of losing the war in terms of victory points. The Avengers hold 3 of the 4 hammers, so they gain 3 victory points from that. Luke Cage and Hawkeye are holding the console over there for 1, and Ant-Man and Sam are holding the console up there for another 1, so they gained 5 victory points, taking them to a massive 9. The Uncanny X-Men, they hold 1 hammer on Scott, who is also holding the back Extremis console there for 2, and X-23 is holding this one down here for another victory point, so they gained a total of 3. So as we go into battle round 3, the Uncanny X-Men are trailing. They're at 5 to the Avengers 9, and the Avengers have reclaimed first activation. So with that, let's jump in and see what they do. So Hawkeye got battle round 3 started for the Avengers, thinking it would be an easy days just to do 2 damage to Blade. Shot his quiver. The defense roll had no successes, so he spent 2 on supernatural senses to get that full reroll, fully blocked the damage, although he did take a slow stats effect. Hawkeye fired again, only had 2 successes this time, no reroll required. Blade fully blocked it, so he took no damage. So unlucky for Hawkeye, who normally performs a lot better than that. So Blade activated, and first of all spent a couple of power to use Half-Blood Physiology twice. Doesn't say it's limited to once per turn or that it is an action. It says you get a free shake action. Well, not free because you're paying power, but doesn't take an action instead. So he shook a couple of stats effects, moved in for his first actual action, and then did his basic katana attack. However, Luke Cage used Too Dangerous to ignore for 2 to become the target of the attack, which is doubly bad because it's a mystic attack which Hawkeye is weak to, and it would have bled him guaranteed, but Luke Cage is immune to bleed. He took 2 damage, and then his invulnerability or invulnerable skin roll reduced that down to 1, so not too great there either. Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow activated next for the Avengers, so I guess we'll be seeing more of from now on because we know for sure she's part of the S.H.I.E.L.D. affiliation coming out in March. But anyway, she had a decent turn. She spent 2 on Tear Gas, which is an area 2 around her. It's only 4 dice physical, but it does a guaranteed poison. So Honey Badger and X-23 were both poisoned. Honey Badger didn't take any damage from it, but X-23 took 2. She then spent 3 on Widow's Kiss, her best attack, 6 dice energy plus 1 die for any status effects on the target. So she did 7 energy dice into X-23. It was going to do 5 damage. Oh, and also it doesn't let them generate power off of it as well. She was going to do 5 damage, but X-23 had enough power that she spent 3 on exceptional healing to bring that 5 damage down to 1, because otherwise she'd be knocked out and Honey Badger can't contest objectives. So as it stands, they're still both... Oh, actually no, Black Widow flipped her card, didn't she? So as it stands, X-23 is holding that objective. Oh, and just because I don't think it's been mentioned on camera, X-23 has healing factor 2, so 2 of that damage is immediately healing. Honey Badger has healing factor 1. So we're sticking down here because X-23 activated, and now is the point at which her healing factor kicks in. It's obviously at the end of her turn, but I just wanted to mention it while it was remembered that it's not been said on camera. She did her basic adamantium slash on Black Widow, managed to get 1 damage through plus a bleed, at which point Black Widow, well, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow, spent 2 on Parting Shot. She does 1 damage automatically and does a small advance. She moved over there, which unfortunately puts her outside of range 2 for another adamantium slash. So for Laura's other turn, she's just going to slightly reposition there-ish. So she's still within 1 of the Extremis console and chasing Black Widow, but she can't do anything else attack-wise. So at this point she would heal 2 damage that she took from Black Widow attacking her in her turn. Luke Cage activated and did his basic strike, plus 1 die because of the hammer he's holding, onto Blade. 3 damage got through, it just needed to do 2, so Blade is dazed. Luke Cage has another action. He doesn't have anything he wants to do. He wants to hold that console, there's no one nearby. A couple of tactics cards did get played though. The Second Wind got played, so Luke Cage and Black Widow both spent 1 power to heal 1. He also spent 1 power to interact with the console to heal again, so he's back to full health. And Avengers Assemble was played during his turn, but only Black Widow took advantage of it, and she is moved further away from Honey Badger down there. So Honey Badger was the next activate for the Uncanny X-Men, and first of all she played Jonathan the Unstoppable, her tactics card, which puts down a token within within one of her current position. It costs her 2 to play it. It is very similar to the decoy or whatever ability it's called that Mystique has. Puts down a token that counts as a wounded allied character that can hold objectives, but if any enemy gets within one of it, it disappears. And again, it counts as wounded, not healthy, but it's there, and it's kind of like Honey Badger's way of being able to help control objectives in a small way, no pun intended. During the cleanup phase, if an allied Honey Badger is on the battlefield and there's no Jonathan token, you return this tactics card to your hand and it can be played again. So for her actual turn, after spending that 2, she moved medium to chase after Black Widow at the top of your screen there. She tried to do her basic claw strike, and Black Widow fully blocked the damage. Didn't have any power to do parting shot again though. The normally peaceful Wong activated next for the Avengers in this game of cat and mouse. It's been going on the left flank here, trying to force out activations before Wolverine activates to take advantage of his healing factor. Wong activated, he spent 2 to give 1 power to Sam. He medium moved over to the far side of the extremist console on the left there, as you can see him. Then he did a basic strike 4 dice physical into Wolverine and only went and managed to do 2 damage through to him. So Wong had a pretty okay turn. We'll see if the Wolverine activates now. So the Wolverine did activate and started with a Berserker Barrage 7 dice physical into Sam. Sam spent 2 on Vibranium Shield to give himself 2 extra defense dice. Fully blocked the damage. So then Wolverine tried an Adamantium Slash, and that's 5 dice physical. Once again, Sam buffed his defense with Vibranium Shield. There was 2 successes in the initial Berserker Barrage roll. There was 1 success in the Adamantium Slash. Wolverine has not been having statistical rolls, let's say, and Sam easily blocked that as well. So getting a bit frustrated at that point. Pull back a little bit. Logan spent 3 on Weapon X program to chuck himself, and remember his Adamantium skeleton makes him count as 3 instead of size 2. And that finally managed to do 2 damage to Sam. It took 6 power and technically 3 attacks if you count the throw from Weapon X to do 2 damage to a 3 physical defense threat 3 character. So we're sticking over there because Sam activated to take advantage of that hammer he's holding. He threw 2 strength 5 physical shield throws into Logan's head. First one did 1 damage, second one did 2. That's the only damage he's got on him because he healing factored the other damage he had away. But it's a start, and with that it's over to Cyclops to end off the turn for the X-Men. So Scott has moved ever so slightly. He's repositioned for plans for the next turn, but is otherwise still staying back there to hold that Extremist console. So it's over to Ant-Man to end off Battle Round 3 proper. So during his turn, Ant-Man did change form, but at the end of his turn it resulted in him being small again, so that's why he's still small for you lot. He started with his ant-sized uppercut onto Logan, didn't do any damage, and that transformed him back into regular size. Then he did his Pin Particle Punch, 4 dice physical, that also didn't do any damage. Wolverine's attack rolls have been garbage. His defense rolls have been pretty decent consistently, but Scott did take advantage of that being able to shrink him back down to a little size, and that does take us to scoring for the round. So at the end of Battle Round 3, even though they are definitely getting beat up and the Avengers are running away with it, they just cannot have those hammers pried from their fingers. They're still holding 3 of them for 3 victory points. Hawkeye and Luke Cage are holding that Extremist console. Ant-Man and Steve and Wong. No, actually, no, Wong's flipped his card, hasn't he? So never mind. Just Ant-Man and Steve, and not Steve. That's not Steve at all. That's Sam. They're holding the Extremist console over there. So they gained another 5, was that? It takes the Avengers up to 14. They need 2 more victory points to win. The X-Men have 1 hammer for 1 victory point. Jonathan the Unstoppable and X-23 are holding this Extremist console for 1. Scott's holding that console for 1. So they gained 3, taking them up to 8. And the X-Men have also regained first activation as we go into Battle Round 4. So Battle Round 4 started with Wolverine sort of going beast mode. Not fully, but sort of. He opened with a Berserker Barrage onto Sam, who did pay 2 to do Vibranium Shield again. Only 1 damage got through, 2 damage got through, but there you can see there's a 3 there. That's because he did damage so he could chuck him small, chucked him into Ant-Man, so Sam takes 1 damage from that flat. Ant-Man took 1, all said and done, with his rerolls for being small on his dodge roll. That was enough that Sam has been knocked out. Wolverine paid 1 to pick up the hammer that he dropped, and then did a Adamantium Slash on Ant-Man. But I just realized, technically, I think because Adamantium Slash was a separate attack, the All New, All Different could have kicked in, but it wouldn't have mattered because he still took too much damage that even if he'd healed one, he would also be knocked out because the Adamantium Slash, plus 1 die because of the hammer, did 4 damage to Ant-Man. Actually would have. He's got how much health on his healthy side? 5 health. Oh wait, yeah, he wasn't damaged enough at all to get knocked out, never mind. So you know what, we'll say that the All New All Different healed him as well. So yes, he did take enough damage to daze him there, but before the Adamantium Slash got initiated, the All New All Different kicks in first, so he lived on 1 HP. So because he's still healthy, that is actually still contested over there. So Ant-Man tried his best to take out Wolverine. He started by spending 1 to change to large size so then he could do his big attack called Bullet Ant Barrage, which is a beam. He positioned it in such a way it was only hitting Logan. 7 dice physical, does stun and poison, but Wolverine's immune to stun, so just poison. All said and done, you can't quite see the damage because Sam's in the way, but oops, it did 2. Let's knock smoke off the building there. It did 2, and then he was large size. He tried to do his uppercut, or size changing punch, sorry, which made him shrink down again. That got fully blocked. So he's staying there, he's still contesting it with Wong. Well, Wong's wounded, but he's staying nearby and wasn't quite able to seal the deal on Logan because he healed 2 at the end of his turn, which I forgot to mention. So it was meant to be the Hail Mary, you won't see this coming play. Scott left the, I should say Cyclops, since there's 2 people called Scott on the table. Cyclops left the control of the objective he'd been holding the whole game, moved up and then spent on Optic Devastation to do his Beam 5, caught Wong and Ant-Man. Ant-Man fully blocked it, and yes, I know what you're thinking, he's got 2 energy defense. He rolled 2 crits, which turned into a crit and something else. He didn't take any damage from it, the rolls were bad. Wong took 2 damage on his 3 energy defense, and lived with 2 health, so the best laid plans and all of that. Well, we're over this side of the table because Hawkeye activated next for the Avengers, and this time he didn't have as much luck. He fired his arrows into Blade twice. First one whiffed, second one did just a single point of damage. Didn't even need to spend on supernatural senses either. Honey Badger activated next in an attempt to take out Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow. First basic attack with her claws did nothing at all. The second one though did pretty well, did 4, and I think Black Widow has 5 HP on her flipped over side, but she lived, so she spent 2 on Parting Shot, did 1 damage to Honey Badger, didn't bother putting it on the table because her healing factor immediately is going to remove it, but she moves small and has moved that way, which may mean that Cyclops made a mistake. And yeah, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow activated, she made use of that Parting Shot moving her. For her first action she got rid of her bleed so she didn't die at the end of her turn, and then she moved medium to claim that back objective. I think it was already in the Avengers' hands, but that's more or less confirmed it. So it was down to Blade to see if there was any point playing on here. He spent on Night of the Vampire to attack Hawkeye, but of course Luke Cage spent 2 to step in and become the target with Too Dangerous to Ignore. He took 1 damage, no bleed as well because he's immune to bleed. Then Blade followed up with his basic katana attack. It's Mystic 5 dice offhand. Also does bleed, but again doesn't matter because Too Dangerous to Ignore was activated again. Actually, can he use that twice per turn? Or is that a once per turn? No, it can be used as much as you want. So, yep, he could do it, and he took, well, sorry, from Night of the Vampire he took 2 damage reduced to 1. The basic attack also did 2 reduced to 1. But all said and done, he's been healing his damage, so he's not anywhere near to getting knocked out. The hammer he's holding is safe, the hammer Hawkeye is holding is safe. Wong could activate to try and spitefully take out Wolverine just to deny some points. X-23's got to hold that objective. Well, actually no, she doesn't need to because of Jonathan being there, but 2 medium moves is not enough to get her to any of the other objectives. So yeah, I think we're just going to go to scoring there, and this is an Avengers win. So just to make this official then, the X-Men have 2 hammers, and they only hold 1 of the points, which is at the bottom of your screen here with Jonathan and X-23, making their final score at the end of Battle Round 4 11. The X-Men though, they get enough to win just on the Extremist consoles they're holding. Black Widow's holding 1, Luke Cage and Hawkeye are holding 1. For 2, I think that's all they needed to get to 16, but they also have the other 2 hammers, so that puts them at 18, and it's a draw over by the one with Wolverine, because Wolverine and Ant-Man are the only healthy characters standing near it. So a comfortable victory for the not for the X-Men, for the Avengers there. Although the X-Men were doing okay in terms of beating them up, but I guess that's the point of the Sam Spam list. They're not exactly super tanky, and you take advantage of them getting dazed and whatnot with the all new, all different. In terms of things being done differently, speaking of which, X-23 probably shouldn't have bothered using Jonathan here, because there's no point, because Honey Badger, sorry, because X-23 is here. What she should have done was go over to the back line objective, put Jonathan on that, and then Cyclops leaving it would have at least left something on it for capturing. Black Widow still might have been able to get over there and remove Jonathan, but at least would have put up some kind of defence than force an action. Beyond that though, there wasn't any spikes in terms of like huge amount of damage that are above statistics for the number of dice being rolled, but there was a ridiculous number of rolls where the results were way below average, and particularly as far as Wolverine and Cyclops. Actually, and Blade. No, honestly, and Blade. There were so many times where they should have been getting like an average of 3 or 4, and they were getting 0 to 1. It works out that way sometimes. It seemed to be affecting them more than the Avengers. It sucks when that happens. But Honey Badger and X-23 work well together, perhaps not surprisingly, and they're pretty neat, and I feel like if Luke Cage hadn't been the detriment to them teaming up with Blade, that could have been so much better and is worth exploring in the future. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. There will be more Crisis Protocol to come. Sometimes it takes a backseat a little bit to some other games that are shorter lived, but it is sticking around for the long term. See you next time, and also for the March releases, which is adding minions to the game. Until then, ta-ta for now.